started fishing when I was probably went when I was 5 at the first time. My granddad and my dad took me. I fished a junior match when I was 6 years old, which my granddad sat with me, and I've been hooked ever since, to be honest. Both of them took me until I was about 13 when my granddad died, but then my dad, I used to just pester him, sit behind him on open matches until I was old enough myself to start fishing them. When I was 13, I went for my first England trial, and when we got the letter through the door to say I got a trial, me and my dad were like jumping around the front room, absolutely buzzing. I didn't get in that year, but the year after they had to take 2 under 14-year-olds, and I got picked as one of them, and then I've fished for the next 5 years in like the under 18 setup. Up until winning this event, obviously qualifying for Fishermania and coming second in the final and also winning the Camasan final, they were both massive achievements, but this event takes it all, to be honest, because the standard of angler, and it's over 3 days as well. Like, that's by far my biggest achievement. The thing I like about F1 fishing the most, like places like Tunnel Barn, you constantly have to think about your fishing. You're not like just waiting for the last 2 hours to catch a massive weight. You constantly have to put fish in the net, work different lines. You have to be busy for all 5-6 hours of the match, and just constantly trying to try new methods and keep fish going in the net, because I know you cannot still have like a good last 2 hours shallow or whatever, but you need to be putting fish in the net all day rather than just the last 2 hours. Like carp fishing, they can just turn up down the edge and you empty it, catch £100 or so. My biggest influences, obviously my dad, because he got me into fishing. He showed me the ropes, brought me up, like took me all over the place. The amount of travelling that he did with me. We used to travel all over the place, like down to Gold Valley for England trials and stuff. As the years have gone on, Andy Bennett has been massive, because he's like took me under his wing a bit when I was probably 17 or so, and just shown me all his little tricks and stuff of F1 fishing, and that's helped me massively. Yeah. Today we're on peg 29 on top pool, looking out into like the main lake. I've got an island at about 14 metres where it's about 2 foot deep. I'm just going to fish soft pellets up to that. I'll probably throw casters shallow at 6 metres, and I've got like a nice edge here as well, which I can fish pellets and maybe a little bit of ground bait down there. In like fishing in this sort of depths up to like 2 and a bit foot, I think you can get away with fishing soft pellets without getting lined out too much. I mean, I think if you start putting soft pellets in 3 foot, 4 foot, then I think the fish they sink too slowly. Fish are going to come up off the bottom, give you liners, you're going to foul up fish. But anything up to 2 foot, you can get away with soft pellets, I think. I think after that you need to be looking at fishing either hard 4s or hard 6s. But where I can get away with it, and there's not too many like small fish, roach and skimmers and stuff that are going to attack your bait at tunnel, that's like not really a problem, so I'll fish soft pellets wherever I can. A lot of anglers have asked me how much preparation I did for the Masters, and to be honest, I've not done as much as everybody expected, because everyone expects you to tie hundreds of rigs, and I just like go through my rigs here. I just basically filled these 2 trays. I had like some 4x14 rigs for fishing in the deep water, some 4x12 wire stem rigs for fishing like up to the grass, say if it was 3-4 foot deep on pellets. Had some mudline rigs, and then quite a few shallow rigs. You can only use like a couple of rigs. You can only set like so many top kits up a day. There's no point in tying hundreds of rigs because you're never going to use that many. But I just made sure that I had all my options covered with every rig, and enough for like each day, basically. In a minute I'll go through my rigs that I'm using today, but I'll go through some rigs that I actually used in the festival, which I've not got on my top kits today. For example, this like 4x12 RW Dink, It takes about 7 number 10s and it's perfect for fishing like up to cover where it's like 3 foot deep, just too deep to fish a mud float. I used that on high pool on the first day, fishing up to the grass, and it was perfect. I've also got a jigger, which I've not really used that much before, but the first day again I caught on it really well. As high pool's deep, and I'd catch a couple at say 12 inch and I'd catch a couple at 20 inch, and then I'd put that on and drop down, because it's hard when you're fishing like 3 foot and like you're missing bites because there's fish above your float. With something like that, it's tight line, and that's how I caught on the first day as well. With my hook box again, I was confident with, well, I am confident with the gear that I use. I didn't tie up tons and tons of different patterns of hooks. I knew that I'd either be fishing pellets, maybe a little bit of worms, or meat or casters, so I tied up some 16s and 18s LWG to 013, some 16s Kaizens in case I was fishing meat, and then again the same 18s and 16s to 013, but eyed this time for like fishing pellets and casters shallow, all tied at 4 inch, and they were the pattern of hooks that I went for. Right, this is like my first rig, which is a rig that I caught on very well in the festival. It's just a 0.4 RW muddy float, which takes 6 number 8s. I've got that all bulked right down to the hook length, short 4 inch hook length for a 16s LWG, Super LWG. 013 to an 017 main line, with a little back shot just to hold the rig into place when it's like down, onto a white hydro, and just a nice little pot with some holes in just for tapping my pellets out, and it's a short kit as well, which I really prefer for this style of fishing, like F1 fishing. This is one of my shallow rigs, which I caught a few fish on. Same again, just a 4 inch up length 013 with a 18s LWG eyed and a band on for fishing either caster or pellets. Just a little bulk of 5 number 11s up to a RW F1 shallow, which you can just slap over, makes a bit of noise, settles up nicely. Perfect for shallow fishing. Onto this I've got an orange hydro, which is a little bit lighter because you can catch eyed and stuff here, and some smaller F1s shallow, and it just stretches a bit nicer than a white hydro where you've got a chance of catching carp across and stuff like that. This again, just another similar rig, F1 shallow, bulk nets to the hook, 017 to 013, with a banded caster on, just for if they're a bit in that bit deeper water when you're fishing shallow. With my pellet preparation, the night before a match, I will put, say, however many expanders I need into a little bag. I'll fill that up with cold water to like the amount of pellets that there is in the bag. I'll tie a knot in the bag and put that in the fridge overnight, just to let the water soak into the pellets. My micros, I'll just wet them on the bank, just again level amount of water as there is micros, just let the water soak into them. And if I need to drain any water off, I will do. Some batches are better than others, they'll take on the full amount of water. If it's not a good batch and you've got to use fishery pellets, then I will have to drain them off. Then my expanders, I just have a pint tub of water on my side tray. I put 10 or 15 expanders at a time in, they're all floating. I give them a little squeeze before I put them on the hook just to make sure they sink. I'll use them and then I'll get some more out of my bag, just so they don't soak up too much during the day. You're only putting a few at a time in, and that's the best way to do your soft pellets. So the main parts about pellet fishing really is accuracy. So you want to pick a far bank marker, line your float up with that. You want to pick a marker on your pole so you know you're shipping to the same spot every time. You've got to line them two together. Tap your bait in gently, like that, just so your pellets come out nicely. and you want to put your rig right on top of that little volume of bait you've put in, and hopefully when the fish come in, there's a little bed of expanders and your bait is sat right on top of them. With a peg like this today, where I'm one of the only ones on the lake who can reach the island, I'd normally start across, as you've got a bit of an advantage, you're one of the only ones who can reach there, so you may as well make the most of your advantage and go straight across, because you could just get a quick burst of fish. This peg today is quite deep across, it's like 2 foot deep, 2 and a bit foot deep, tight across to the bank. I'd normally, this time of year, you want to be looking for like 18 inch, something like that, maybe a little bit shallower if you can get it, but 18 to 20 inch is usually like a perfect depth for like summertime across fishing. But yeah, like normally when I start a session across, I'll just go in straight into the peg with a small amount of bait, like this small pot that I've got on today, and I'll put one of them in every 2 to 3, maybe 4 minutes. Just want to be constantly keeping bait going into the peg, not just sitting there for like 5 or 6 minutes at a time, because your fish will come into your peg, they'll eat your bait and they'll swim out again, and you can just be sat there with your bait in the peg and nothing else. If I was going to rest the line, then I'd probably give it like, not a massive pot full. If I was fishing ground bait, I'd maybe give it a big pot and there's some carp about, but with pellets, I'd probably give it like a big palm full of pellets if I'm going to go on another line, just to like put a decent amount of bait in your peg but not overfeed it, and just keep some fish occupied while you're not on that line. Basically with my edge fishing at tunnel, it's pretty much the same as my across fishing, where I'm just looking for a marker, line it up, tap your bait in and make sure your hook bait is right on top of that bait. If I was fishing for carp, like lakes with carp in, I'd probably put some ground bait in, but I've been on top pool twice in the last week, and feeding just pellets has definitely been the best, and I've not had a carp either time, so obviously knowing the lake helps, and you know that you're not fishing for carps, there's no point in big potting ground bait, you know that the best thing to do is just tap pellets in, nice tidy match. With my edge fishing, depending on my peg, like this peg that I'm sat on today, I've got an island to fish to across, so I've already got a feature in my peg across, whereas peg the other day, peg 5, I didn't really have any features. You've not got an island, you just got open water, and this time of the year the fish don't want to be sat on the bottom, so you're trying to catch shallow in that open water. So while you're prepping your shallow line, the best thing to do is start down the edges, that is really the only time I would start down the edge if you've not got any other feature. Like today I'll start across and I'd save my edges for later in the match. But on different, it depends on your peg, like what kind of approach you're going to go for, but on pegs where you've not really got any other features apart from your edges, that's the only shallow water you've got, then I would be starting in my edges. It's only if I've got an island across where you can get away from yourself a bit that I'd probably start across. If I did start in a different part of my peg and save my edges for later in the match, I probably wouldn't like fill it in with bait. I'd just be putting palmfuls of pellets in, maybe a little bit of ground bait if you're on some carp. Just keep something in the peg. Don't overfeed it, and so that you're not going to catch anything when you go on it. Just keep little bits going into your peg all the time, so that when you do go on it, there should be some fish waiting for you. My biggest angling ambitions for the future, I think, is to try and win a big money final. I mean, or a big festival, Whiteacres, something, or winning this again would be massive because it's right up there with all the main events in fishing, if not the biggest. But I'd say definitely qualifying for a big final and trying to win that, because that's like what everything seems to be at the minute in fishing. Like, and obviously you've got your England set up. I can't see myself getting into that, but you never know. So I'd say the biggest piece of advice I can give for F1 fishing is keep busy. Don't just sit on one line for 6-7 minutes. You need to be shipping back in and feeding again. Just constantly working your swims and keeping bait falling through the water.